Imagine walking through a forest. 40,000 years ago, the trees are the same, the stars are the same, but you are not alone. Because somewhere out there, watching you from the shadows, is another kind of human. Not an animal, not a monster, a thinking, feeling, tool-making human. That is not you. And here's the terrifying part. We met them. We talked to them. We fought them. We had children with them. And then they vanished. This is not mythology. This is not science fiction. This happened. And the proof is inside your DNA right now. Today we're going to meet every single human species that our ancestors encountered and ask the question that should keep you up at night. What really happened to them? Most people think of human history as a single straight line, from apes to us, but that is completely wrong. The real story looks more like a bush, dozens of branches, dozens of species, all evolving at the same time. For millions of years, multiple human species walked this planet simultaneously. We are what's left, the last branch, and the reason we survived while the others didn't, that is one of the greatest mysteries in all of science. Let's meet them, one by one. If you lived in Europe 50,000 years ago, you would have met them, the Neanderthals. Forget what you think you know. These were not dumb cavemen grunting at rocks. Neanderthals buried their dead with flowers. They made jewelry. They painted caves. They cared for their sick and elderly, people who could not survive without help. That is not animal behavior. That is civilization. They were shorter than us, but much stronger, built like powerlifters with thick bones and massive brow ridges. Their brains were actually bigger than ours on average. So what happened? We arrived in Europe around 45,000 years ago, and within about 5,000 years, Neanderthals were gone. But here's what's wild. They didn't just disappear. If you are of European or Asian descent, between 1% and 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. That means our ancestors didn't just fight them. They had children with them. And some of that ancient DNA still protects us today, shaping our immune systems, our hair, even how we respond to disease. The Neanderthals are gone, but they live on inside you. In 2008, scientists found a tiny bone fragment in a Siberian cave. It was barely the size of your fingertip. From that speck of bone, they extracted DNA and discovered an entirely unknown species of human. They called them the Denisovans. We still don't know what they looked like. We have almost no physical remains. But genetically, they were absolutely real. And they traveled further than we ever imagined. Denisovan DNA shows up today in Aboriginal Australians, Melanesians, and some Southeast Asian populations, at levels up to 6%. How did a Siberian population leave its DNA in the islands of the Pacific? That means our ancestors crossed paths with Denisovans across an enormous stretch of Asia and into the Pacific multiple times. Even more remarkable, Tibetans today carry a Denisovan gene that helps them survive at high altitudes. Without that ancient inheritance, living on the Tibetan plateau would be nearly impossible. We know almost nothing about them, but they shaped the world we live in. Here's a species that deserves far more respect than it gets: Homo erectus. They existed for nearly 2 million years. For context, our species, Homo sapiens, has been around for only about 300,000. Erectus outlasted us by a factor of 6. They walked upright, they controlled fire, they made sophisticated tools, and they spread out of Africa into Europe, and all the way to Southeast Asia, long before we did. Some researchers believe that when early modern humans first arrived in Asia, Homo erectus may still have been alive in isolated pockets in Java, Indonesia. If true, they would have been the last surviving population of this ancient lineage, finally going extinct around 100,000 years ago. Did we ever meet them? We don't know for certain, but the possibility is real. On the remote Indonesian island of Flores, something extraordinary was discovered in 2003. The skeleton of an adult human standing just 3.5 feet tall, with a brain the size of a grapefruit. Scientists named them Homo Floresiensis. The media called them Hobbits. They lived on Flores until as recently as 50,000 years ago. They hunted dwarf elephants. They made stone tools. And remarkably, local legends on Flores describe tiny wild people called Ebu Gogo, who lived in caves and spoke in whispers. Could those legends be a cultural memory of the Hobbits? It chills me every time I think about it. These were real humans, isolated on an island, shrinking over thousands of generations due to limited resources. And they were there when our ancestors arrived. In 2019, scientists announced yet another discovery, a completely new species found in a cave in Luzon in the Philippines, named Homo Luzonensis. They had a bizarre mix of ancient and modern features. Curved toe bones, more like Australopithecus, from 3 million years ago. Yet, they were here just 50,000 to 67,000 years ago. How did they get to an island that required crossing open ocean? We don't know what exactly they were. We are still figuring it out. The Philippines may have been a hotbed of human diversity we are only just beginning to understand. Deep in a nearly inaccessible cave system in South Africa, scientists crawled through passages barely wide enough for a human body and found over 1,500 fossil fragments belonging to a previously unknown human species, Homo Naledi. Their brains were tiny, smaller than a chimpanzee's, yet evidence suggests they were deliberately placing their dead in that cave. One of the hallmarks of symbolic ritual behavior, the kind of behavior we assumed required a big brain, and they survived until perhaps 250,000 years ago, meaning they overlapped with early Homo sapiens in southern Africa. Two very different kinds of humans in the same region at the same time. Homo Naledi forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew about intelligence, complexity, and what it means to be human. Before there were Neanderthals, before there were us, there was Homo Heidelbergensis. Living roughly 700,000 to 200,000 years ago across Africa and Europe, they are almost certainly the common ancestor of both Neanderthals and modern humans. They were large-brained, they made wooden spears, they likely hunted in organized groups, and at some point, one population drifted into Europe and eventually became Neanderthals, while another stayed in Africa and eventually became us. When you look at a Neanderthal, you are looking at a cousin. Heidelbergensis is the grandparent you share. So here's the question. Every other human species is gone. Every one. And we are the only ones left. Why? Was it climate change? Competition for food? Did we bring diseases they had no immunity to? Did we simply outbreed them? Or were there darker moments in our past we don't like to think about? The honest answer is probably all of the above. In different places, different things happened. Some populations were absorbed, blended into ours through interbreeding. Others declined slowly as the climate shifted. Some may have been pushed out, outcompeted, crowded into shrinking habitats until the last of them simply stopped having children. But here's what I want you to sit with. These weren't monsters. They weren't failed experiments. They were people with families, traditions, fears, and maybe even music. They cared about their dead. They survived ice ages. They crossed oceans. And they are gone. Every single species, except us. That should feel heavy. The next time someone tells you that humans are the pinnacle of evolution, remember this video. Remember that we are not the end point. We are the survivor. And survival doesn't mean the best. It just means the last one standing. If this changed how you think about being human, leave a comment below. Tell me which species surprised you the most. And if you want to go even deeper, I've made a whole video on what Neanderthal DNA is still doing inside your body today. Link is in the description. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one.